Thank you for joining us. This is Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
And you're listening to Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris, we are testing out some new stuff in the studio. I think we should probably kick off by telling the listeners about what to expect.
So within the next few weeks, maybe a month tops, we plan on going full video.
Full video.
So we're going to start ramping up our YouTube channel. Some of our listeners probably don't even know that we have one.
That's right, yeah. Diesel Performance Podcast over on YouTube. Yep. You'll find our page. Right now, it just has a picture of the logo, and then it has our audio track underneath it.
So we have a couple things, right? We're talking about updating the logo, right? So we're going to have that going on. But we're talking about changing up some of the things that we do on the podcast and getting into some more technical data and some technical information that we already know. A lot of our listeners already shown interest that they like that stuff.
Yeah.
But how do you articulate that and show that? So going to video just gives another, potential source for that information to be, obtained.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We've been thinking about this for a long time. We have worked on moving our studio around 4 or 5 times. So we finally have landed in a new room here in the building over at Duramax Tuner Calibrated Power. We've finished the soundproofing in the room. I think
sounds awesome.
I think that worked well.
Worked real well.
And then now we have
got
finally
some bricks laid.
Yeah,
laid some bricks in the building.
Finally figured out what to do for the video itself because the soundproofing material did not look great on camera. No. So it took us a little time, but I think we nailed it down. I think it looks really good.
I think the best way to describe the room is it looks like a horrible clown room.
Yeah, from RC.
Yeah.
Viewers, don't worry. You guys won't be seeing it, or listeners, don't worry. You won't be seeing that. We polished it up, made it look a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
So we're working through this. You're right, Chris. It's a new format. We're going to be still trying to get some of those awesome interviews that we know people love, where we get to talk to an expert.
Right.
And we have fun. Yeah. And speaking of that, we have an awesome interview for today's show.
So I'm sure if anyone, is part of any type of diesel forum community on Facebook, there's been that elusive 3,000 horsepower broken finally on a chassis dyno.
We've been looking for it.
A lot of controversy, right? So if you guys are living under a rock, we have Chris Patterson on today. So we're super, super excited to kind of get the lowdown on, what it's like to officially break that 3,000 wheel horsepower mark on a chassis dyno.
Absolutely. And we had a lot of questions for Chris about this. We pushed back on it. We read some of the feedback that we had saw online.
You were super excited about that.
Questioning the validity of this number. And Chris's level of confidence, I think, really shows through in this. So, hey, let's kick it over to our conversation with Mr. 3000, Chris Patterson himself. All right, listeners, it's time for our favorite part of the show. We have on Mr. Chris Patterson. Chris,
Mr. 3K.
How the hell are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
We're just doing the diesel game here in Northern Illinois, so we're happy. We get to do what we enjoy. How about yourself?
Living life, getting ready for Black Friday. Yeah, how about you?
Oh, living the diesel game, whether you like it or not. That's pretty much what it is. It's a game, and trying to keep a shop afloat in this crazy times that we live in.
Yeah,
so both of them have their challenges for sure.
No secret there. Juggling a performance vehicle, a purpose-built vehicle, and a business, and having to be your hobby and passion and everything in the mix. There's got to be a lot of stuff that ride on what you do in your day to day.
Oh yeah, it's like I just feel like I juggle all this crap, and one of them always hits the ground, and you just have to, you got to keep it all going. And it's a whole lot to do, but I try the best I can every day that I'm allowed to do it.
Well, I was going to say, Chris, we've had you on the show a few times, and we've heard about some of the struggles in the past, and we've heard about kind of having to pick things back up and start moving forward again. Listeners, you may remember we had Chris on back in 2019 at Diesel Power Challenge out there in beautiful Colorado. Now, at that time, you had gotten voted in as the alternate, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir. I was actually the alternate. Steve Lucero was the official alternate that got to go and compete, and then I had to be on standby in case something happened there.
That's right, and that was a long week. A long week of watching everybody else compete and just kind of just waiting.
There ain't nothing like showing up with all your stuff and ready to go and sit around and wait. But it was good. I got to meet a lot of really cool people and made really good business connections and learned a lot. And there was a lot of strategy that I was observing, and some of it paid off and some of it did not. So it was definitely an eye opener for sure. I felt like it gave me a good competitive advantage.
Speaking of, competitive
going
advantage and connecting the dots and having a week of experience, you loved it so much that then you started your campaign for 2020 trying to get re-voted in for DPC, correct?
Oh, immediately, yes, because I knew. I was like, all right, cool. I saw how it worked. I know what we need to win. I know what we got to do different, and let's go. So I did. I mean, I really, really, really pushed for that, but ultimately it just didn't happen.
Yeah, 2020.
Which is unfortunate.
COVID hit, challenge got canceled, so they didn't. I don't even think they did the voting. I think it was right around that time that maybe they had put ballots out.
It's crazy to think of how quick.
Yes.
Well, because that was the fall of Diesel Power Magazine. Like a lot of stuff happened all at once. It seemed.
Yeah.
It seems like such a blur. Well, it was like a light switch.
Yeah, they went to electric voting, which everybody wanted that, and I think it worked out great. I think it was based on your IP address, and there was tons of votes cast out there. So we don't know the results of any of that. It's never been published. The event just abruptly ended when most of the rest of the world ended too.
Yeah. Yeah, which was tragic because we haven't seen it come back. So we've asked some questions to some people we know. We haven't gotten any definitive answers. I don't know that we will.
Yep.
But what I was happy to see was that you had kind of moved on with the truck. And just to give our listeners a quick refresher, give us a rundown of the truck and the build you brought to DPC in 2019. Okay.
Yeah, and you definitely have to move on. You can't let one event stop you from achieving your goals. But my truck's a 2007 5.9 four-wheel drive, long bed, crew cab, dually, completely the underdog. Whenever we went to DPC, we had flex diesel. I believe they were 200 or 250% over. It's vague back then. And then twin pumps, had a 6.2 liter Cummins motor in it. Had a CP Carrillo hybrid rotating assembly. It was kind of some really cool stuff. A decent trans, fat shaft input, fat shaft output, billet intermediate, full manual valve body. A couple small kits. I think I went up there on a 464 and a 488. I think is what I took. I tried to keep them small just because of the elevation. Like 8,000 to 12,000 feet, kind of depends on the weather, and driving up to the Red Rock Amphitheater. So I wanted something that would still spool kind of quick on a smallish engine. So that's pretty much what we showed up with.
And then the setup, didn't you set the sled for the last event there? Didn't you get to run the sled pull?
I did get to do two things that were kind of fun. I got to basically verify the dyno, that everybody could see that the dyno ATS worked, and then I got to set the sled. And that was my first time to ever sled hook or ever sled pull or anything. And it was amazing. I loved it. It bounced and it did all this other weird stuff I didn't know about. But it wound up going like 300-something feet. And I was like, okay, cool. And then Brad Sankey, the sled pull guy, in his Duramax with his single 480, I want to say he only went like 285 or 290. It went, and he won, but I just thought it was really cool. I've never done it and completely beat him at it. But then again, I had compounds and a dual tire, and he didn't. So
you had a Cummins.
It wasn't exactly
you had a Cummins. Let's be real here. You had the superior engine.
Oh, definitely the Cummins for sure. If it wasn't for the Cummins, none of this would be possible.
Brad Sankey called out.
So I brought more truck for sled than what he brought, and that was why I was going and wanting to compete, was I thought that I had more truck.
Yeah,
and in certain aspects, I did.
Now, being that you had the opportunity to spectate, in 2019, and then you started the campaigning for 2020, what were some of the things, a year later, what was the plan? What were you planning on bringing to 2020 DPC had you been voted in?
Driver skill.
Okay.
It wasn't as much that we were going to change the setup. The setup worked great. I mainly needed more time behind the sled, or in front of the sled, I guess.
Okay.
And then the cone course, like we had bought a whole bunch of cones, and Valor Clutch is just down the road from us, and they have a huge parking lot, like at the end of an airstrip. This parking lot's probably several acres. So we went and set up cones and took a trailer and drug it around and, really beat your equipment up. But I felt like 1,200 horsepower would have been competitive. Now, we did get a bigger engine and bigger chargers and bigger injectors, but that all kind of came later. So the big difference was going to be my ability to wheel the machine, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know how many.
There's a lot of driver error.
That's just what I was going to say.
That's got to been a topic.
How many times have we interviewed DPC competitors I don't think we've ever nailed down anybody who legitimately set up a cone course to go and practice.
No.
Ever.
Well, I always think back, and not to take any light from Chris here, but when you think of like the Levon era, when
Sure.
he was winning DPC every year, he brought a crew along, a truck that on paper isn't going to be the most aesthetically friendly, right?
Yeah.
But he knew how to drive. Grew up on a farm, grew up towing trailers, this and that, and driver error is one of the biggest things that you have to be able to get from point A to point B. You're racing with a bobcat, you're drag racing, you're sled pulling, the cone course. I mean, there's all these different attributes of, that experienced driver behind the seat that, they need to execute correctly.
Well, and that brings up a good question there, Emke, is why go with the dually setup? If you're going to be taking the truck to compete in these type of challenges, why did you want to build a dually instead of just going to a regular cab setup?
Well, I never really chose the dually. It just kind of chose me. It was a really cheap truck at the dealership I was at. I needed a good daily driver. It fit the bill. It had leather interior. It was a 07 59, 2 owners. Like, it wasn't a bad truck, and it was cheap. So then I was introduced into the world of common rail horsepower, and then my whole life just changed. And it's like, like the summary I have for all this crap is the distance between more and enough never closes. So it just led to one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and then we made good power. And then also the second biggest reason I stick to the dually is all the haters out there that have something to say about how fast their regular cab, short bed converted carbon fiber or fiberglass truck is. And this isn't a race truck. This is a 100% street truck. I've been daily driving it all week since coming back from Ohio. It's not a race vehicle. It does good at sled. It does decent in dirt drag. I've just recently was introduced to that. But I don't want a racetrack. I've never wanted a racetrack. I want something to go out and have fun with. And it just kind of evolved. So that's really it, I guess.
Let's fast forward now, right? So 2020 DPC never happened, right?
Did you compete in anything in 2020?
We went to the King of the Street Challenge, and it was a very last-minute thing. We also did the Gauntlet. There's a few other things in 2020 that we did, but mainly local stuff. I don't have the funds to go ODSS race and go crazy campaigning like that. I can only maybe hit 2 or 3 states or 2 or 3 events that are out of state. But we did go to King of the Street Challenge, and that was amazing. And I had to thrash the last minute to get a cage cert, all this stuff. And then 3 rounds into drag racing, I was in the semifinals with David Petrick, and I started knocking a rod bearing really loud. And we had the transmission out just hours before we ballooned a converter and cut the front pump seal. So under lockup, it sprayed fluid everywhere. So we had to yank the trans, swap the converter, stick it all back in. So I thought I had a loose converter bolt, so we tightened up the bolts in the staging lanes and fired up, and it's still knocking. So I sent it, and David and I both killed the tires at the head, because it was like 11:30 at night. The track was probably 40 degrees. We both killed the tires at the head. I feathered it. Rod was knocking even louder than the turbos were, and he got about 2 or 3 out on me, so I just lifted, because I knew if I threw a rod or, split the block or some crap like that, knocked a hole in the pan, it was going to hold down the track. It was going to kill drag racing for the whole event that night. So I was already losing. The motor was already hurt. I knew I couldn't go another round. I just let him have it. So that was tough.
Oh.
That was real tough. Yeah, real tough. But what am I going to do?
That's a hard
one.
one.
I didn't bring another motor.
It is funny how much time you feel like you have thinking through those situations when you're on the track, because you're talking about a start to finish of 8 seconds.
Right. That's a lot of stuff to happen in that type of time frame. So
I had, we got past the round before it, and we were knocking down the return road, and I just finished this roll cage. Well, I don't know if you've ever been in a caged hot rod truck. They make a buttload of noise. They bang and clang like crazy. Well, I couldn't hear the engine with a helmet on and a little sock on your head and all that crap. I was like, man, this thing sounds terrible. So I got back in the staging lane, fired it up, and it was knocking. I'm like, well, this is really cool. What are we going to do? We didn't bring a motor. We didn't bring bearings or rods or a crank. We didn't bring anything like that.
Now, did that kick you out? Because I know the order was different of events in 2020. So, like, did you get to do, like, the street drive and the dirt drags? Like, how much of the event did you get through?
Nope. I got to drag race, and that was it.
Oh, that was the first event.
Yeah, so I had like 50 points for the whole event or something. Everything else was DNF.
That's brutal.
So now,
yeah, you're telling it sucked. Yeah.
Being that you were at ATS Gauntlet and you went to King of the Streets in 2020, let's what was the truck setup power output wise? Like, what were you bringing to those type of events that year?
So we had went to the Gauntlet earlier that year, right like 2 weeks before COVID came out, and we had dynoed. Actually, I got to straighten this out. I got a story to tell about this so everybody knows the truth. We went to PRT the night before at Tyler Baker's shop, and we made decent power, and we did some wastegate tuning and whatnot, and we picked up good power. Then we went on the inside dyno at ATS, and the first pull did like 15 something, and we weren't really quite sure what was going on. So we did another pull, and we weren't making full boost. We were only getting like 40 pounds. Well, we had blown the wastegate hose off, like the reference line, so the gate was opening at like 35 or 40 pounds. I don't remember if we were on triples or not. I think we were on triples, but it did 1,640 horse at 40 psi on the ATS dyno.
Jesus
wow.
Christ.
Okay, yeah, that put us in second for the Gauntlet, I believe. So okay, we got off. We did our 3 pulls. We got off. We popped the hood. We're looking around, and there's the freaking hose off the gate. Cool. Well, we find a hose clamp, we ghetto it back together, go outside on the Northwest Dyno Circuit for the ATS Let It Roll event. The Gauntlet was held inside. The ATS Let It Roll was held outside. And same tune-up, same mattress, same everything, just with a properly functioning wastegate. It did 1,915 at like 115. 110, 115 pounds of boost. So we were
at
like,
a mile of elevation.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yes, yeah, in the ATS parking lot. So we were like, all right, cool. We know what's up now. We're back. But there's this huge misunderstanding in the whole clique of the diesel performance world that the ATS dyno and the Northwest Dyno Circuit were on 2 different readings, or the horsepower numbers were different or whatever, because that's what I did. But I told people, like, hey, we blew a wastegate reference line. The gate was open the whole pull.
You had 60 to 70 pounds of boost loss between the 2 dynos. I mean, that's...
Yeah, 40 pounds versus 110.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's going to make more power. Everybody that watches my truck and sees me and talks to me, they know that my truck doesn't smoke. We have it dialed in where we just don't smoke. So, yeah, we did a 1,640 horsepower pull at 40 pounds of boost, and it was smoky as all get. It filled that whole little dyno room up at ATS. Oh. And I knew, I was like, man, something, and I grabbed the backup kit. I grabbed it all. I was like, man, something ain't right here. So we just got off of it. Yeah, I lost the win for the Gauntlet. That sucked. Cody Pulliam won with like 1680 or 1690, $4,500. So that was kind of another bummer.
Oof.
But we did win the ATS Let It Roll event for $300 outside at 1,900 horse.
That's the fuel for the week. And
yeah, that was hard. Yeah, it was a long drive home. We had a great team meeting on that 14-hour drive home. But that's what we were bringing to the 2020 King of the Street event, was the triples. And in October we were on a local dyno I do all my testing at, and we were able to hit 2,041 horse there. But yet again, that wasn't the right dyno. It wasn't the right corrected altitude. It was this, it was that. It wasn't this, it wasn't that. Okay, whatever. I don't care. That's fine. So then we went to King of the Street, spun a bearing 3 rounds in drag racing. So it was really a huge Debbie Downer. It really tore me up for a month or two, all kind of into the winter. So get back, get the business like recuperated and funds flowing and projects taken care of, improvements are made and whatnot. Pull the motor out, find a bunch of stuff, learn a bunch of stuff about the engine. build a new power package, put it in. We get the phone call from James to be invited to the 2021 Ultimate Callout Challenge. We had 105 days to go. And I think that's when we last spoke, was the prep for UCC.
Right,
That's right.
That
yeah.
that
I think we
is.
talked about that. So since then, we front and rear forward linked the truck. We lost a whole lot of weight, did bigger axles and all this other crap, couple motors. The week before UCC, we finally got it all fired up and running. At this point, we had two 14-millimeter extra G race pumps, flex diesel 480% comp hybrid injectors. We have a VS Racing double ball bearing 8096 on the manifold with a VS triple ball bearing 106, 113 on the atmosphere. And we know the fuel we had. We did the 2,000 horse and 1,900 horse was on 330% flux. So we knew how much more fuel we added, and we had it all mapped out. We knew how much more air we added, and we added a good amount more nitrous. So we kind of knew that we were going to be around that 3,000 horsepower mark. But we had to work out all the small problems on the engines. So the week before the freaking event, we blow up 3 motors testing. Like legit blow them up.
Like cracked blocks, the whole nine, or?
Yeah, like rods, pistons, blocks, cranks, heads.
Wow.
You're talking like, yeah, we popped them good. But we knew the type of power we were going to make. I had a brand new set of billet rods that in one pull threaded the caps and stretched the bolts.
Oh my
Holy
God!
Shit. Now
Yeah, we were
on the
bending
dyno
main
at the
caps.
track, where were you doing your testing?
Both. Yeah, there's a little spot here local, where people gather late at night.
Sure.
And then there's the dyno. So we were kind of hitting those scenes pretty hard for several nights in a row. And ultimately, I called all the sponsors, called the team, got everybody on a conference call and said, hey, we've spent like 70 or 80 grand in a couple weeks. Here's where we have. Here's what we don't have. Here's where we're at. Here's where we need to be. And right now, this is all I can offer to take to this event. No backup motor, 1 backup tranny, a couple pairs of turbos, no backup like drive shafts or U-joints or axle shafts, no backup slicks for if you get a hole in a radial or some crap like that, So I said, professionally, I think we have to make the choice not to go. I don't feel that I can represent my business and my reputation to the best of my ability with what we have right now with 3 days to go before we have to leave. And the last thing I want to do is go out there and have all these companies that represent and put on a very poor show and blow a motor up on the track and oil down the whole track for 4 or 5 hours. Like nobody wants to do that.
Right.
Or get someone hurt in the grandstands because you know that your rod bolts aren't rated for what you're about to spray it and you're going to hurt somebody. Like someone is physically going to get hurt, and that's not something I want to personally be held responsible for. So I made the call, and that was one of the hardest posts I've ever had to make and the hardest conversations I've ever had to have with people. But I'll tell you this, all the team, well, the majority of the team, and all the sponsors said, you know what, you're doing what's right. What's the next event? I said, the next event's King of the Street in October in Ohio. They said, all right, cool. Let's just keep pushing on. Save everything you got. Don't show nothing. And we'll keep going. So we no-showed UCC, told James what was up. He's like, that's fine, whatever. So we don't go to that. And we spend all summer and we keep working on the rig. So now we were at 6,100 pounds in race trim, and it ran 938 at 148 on level 2 fuel only. And I was very impressed with that. Not only did it take the world record instantly, but it just went A to B so easily and flawlessly at 1,600 horse. So that was kind of neat. And then just continued to work and refine and had more problems. Had a bunch of electrical gremlins we had to work for. Get the suspension halfway close. And then 2021 King of the Street Challenge. I felt like we had our head on straight. We had everything we needed to make it happen. We had 6 drag radials, even though they're 100 pounds a piece. We had the sled pull tires. We had about 4 different charger setups. We had a backup motor. We had a big motor. We had enough parts for backup trans. We didn't have a complete backup trans, but we brought parts. And then a full bed, 2 seats, half the interiors in it, you know. So I felt like it was enough to compete. And then that's whenever we chose to show everybody what we would have brought to the Ultimate Call-Out Challenge as far as the dyno is concerned.
So
we
as
still
far
haven't
as
turned it all the way up for drag racing.
So as far as the air and fuel and things like that, all of that was pretty much the same from what you would have had at UCC 2021 as what you brought to All Truck Challenge 2021. You more or less are just trying to figure out the foundation, the motor, getting everything to support the power.
Yep. We had the same 6.7 motor, Hamilton block. It was a comp high test block. We filled it. D&J stage 3 head, D&J rod, tool steel wrist pin, the 2 extra G14 pumps, the 80-106 VS Racing combination, the Flex 408% injectors, my transmission, I guess my engine, like I built it or whatever.
That was going to be my next thing. Everything is still done in-house. Your hands are involved in everything from A to Z.
Yeah, I can't do a $28,000 engine. I just can't do it.
I love that. I love that the other option to that is I'll just build it myself.
Well, I mean,
because I get it, but we also understand most guys probably aren't in the skill set to be able to just build the engine themselves and then have it hold at 2,800
Paul,
horsepower.
99% of the people that we deal with don't have that ability, right? Yeah. And then to have the brains to get it to the point that it is just impressive.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, neither did I. I mean, we blew probably 5 motors this year, so it's like, neither did I, but I had no choice but to understand what happened, how to resolve it, how to fix it, and go forward and try again.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Can we talk about some of the failures?
We can talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. What I don't want to talk about, I just won't talk about. So we're good. Let's go.
What went wrong in some of those motors? Was it your a mistake you had made? Was it like, I learned that I fucked this up, or was it like, I
should have went with a better rod.
Right, yeah.
Should have went with a better piston.
There was a lot of things, a lot of retarded problems happened. One of them was, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I've seen this a few times now throughout the year, the oil galley plugs in the 2 channels that run parallel to the cam and crank. There's 1 plug in the timing case and 2 plugs in the adapter plate area. And we pushed one out. We pushed the front one out at like 5,000 RPM, and we didn't know it. And it happened during a drag pull. And so we went 3 seconds on the battle logger. We went 3 seconds with no oil. And it completely busted all 6 pistons out. Like, the skirts were galded. The block was galded. It ruined everything. So it really whooped up on the wrist pins on the rods, on the wrist pin bushings. It hurt the rod bearing. It killed all 6 pistons and damn near killed the whole block. Luckily, we decided that we were going to change some things and we were able to salvage the block. So that was one of them. Okay, so how do you really fix that? If you have these 11/16 oil galley plugs that pop out at high RPM, how do you really fix that? There's not really a lot out there. So what I did at like 3 o'clock one morning, because that was the perfect time to think about things like that after working all day.
Now, were you in bed at home thinking about this and then rush back to the shop, or were you just grinding it out and you're like, oh, shit?
I never left the shop.
Wow.
Yeah, I was here all day. Like, you get here at 5 or 6 in the morning, and then you provide service till 4 or 5 o'clock, and then you start working on your own stuff. Well, now you're back to 3 o'clock the next morning, right? That's just kind of how it has to go at this level. So anyways, what I decided was a genius idea was to drive in a new galley plug, right, with some, let's just say, because we're doing this in frame, let's just say we put sleeve retaining compound on this galley plug and we hammer it in, right? Okay, that's fine. Well, we're going to use a little bit of sleeve retaining compound, right? Yeah, okay, that's cool. We can do that. So we drive one in. Well, then I get to mic in an old block that was split in half with a pair of dial calipers and figured out you could probably drive 2 of those in. So now you have a backup galley plug, right? This sounds like an ingenious idea, doesn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, so we're going to roll with this by yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning. So then you drive a second galley plug in. Okay, 2 things happened. Number 1, the block was in the vehicle, so the the sleeve retaining compound went into the bore of the oil galley, down the passage where it lined up with the first crankshaft main bearing. Okay, that's cool. Then it went through that main bearing, through the crankshaft to number one connecting rod bearing that was just so happened to be pointed down. So then it went through the crankshaft throw onto the number one rod bearing, and that's where it stopped. Freaking sleeve retaining compound. Yeah, so that worked out really good in the long run.
You glued your motor shut?
Yep, instantly spun those bearings.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
Didn't find that out till you wrap it out and put some power on it, and then you spin those dudes and chew up another crank and all that crap. So that's an example of the things I encounter learning how to build it. Is it wasn't the best idea to be 3 o'clock in the shop by yourself doing that type of stuff.
True.
And then you never really think that the sleeve retaining compound is going into an oil galley that has oil that is gravity and like dilutes it and makes it really runny, and then it just runs down and then it dries up overnight. Just who would ever think that something like that would actually freaking happen? So that did. And then another example, I had an external oil plate, oil cooler delete kit, oil filter relocation kit with an external oil pressure regulator. This really nice oil system. And it had a gasket that went between the oil cooler delete plate and the actual oil plate with all the external plumbing. And there was an area on the gasket where outboard oil and inboard oil shared about 1/4 inch of gasket material, and I blew that out and I didn't know it. So now all the oil was getting filtered, and it had an internal bypass. It was like running through. So then that whooped the crap out of several sets of bearings and just embedded all sorts of nice material into them. So that was another, rod and bearing and crankshaft failure. Retarded stuff like that.
I'm speechless.
It's not that and then we ruined a set of rods in one pull. So you're talking 6 pistons, 6 connecting rods, 2 or 3 cranks, all sorts of block modifications. I smashed a few pistons into the head with oil pressure issues. Just a lot of crap like that. Beat out bearings on beat out bushings and brand new rods. Bent wrist pins. 4,000 pound-feet is real hell on a motor.
Yeah. Now,
I had to learn that.
Now, let me ask you this, Chris. Leading up to All Truck Challenge 2021, had you backed that truck up on a dyno making 3,000 horsepower prior and just kept it a secret?
Did you know?
No.
Did you know it was going to hit 3,000? Did you expect it?
That's a lot of questions. Hang on.
It's the same question, just asked differently.
On paper, yeah. Yeah, no kidding. On paper, we had 2,000 whenever we were going for 2. And then on paper, we had 2,500 whenever we were going for 25. So on paper, when we had 3, I fully believed we had 3. There was no doubt in my mind that we had 3,000 horsepower. And whenever we went to the All Truck Challenge, I dynoed. I had to play a strategy on the dyno. So I was in 4th place, and Josh McCormick only had to make 1,700 horse to take 1st place, and I couldn't touch him. I don't know how much power I made. Mathematically, I was 10 points short of touching him, even assuming I was going to win the dyno. Not being arrogant, but just kind of knowing I was going to win the dyno. So I made a level 4 pull with 2 kits, and it did, I think it was like 2451 or something. I was like, all right, cool. That's safe. That's secured. It didn't blow up. It made a good number. That way it counts. So at that point, I had won the dyno challenge, and I was officially in 2nd place, and nothing would really change that unless Josh did not make 1,700, and he went after me. We all knew that Josh is really good at making power and testing an engine's limit, so we knew he was going to make over 2,000 horse. So we kind of knew how that was going to play out. So then I was like, cool, I'm going to do a level 5 pull, and I'm going to turn on one of the big 375 solenoids. And I knew that it was going to be at 3, so I had a talk with Sarah and the dyno operator, and I said, hey, we're going to have to back these people up from here to here. We're going for 3. And she's like, are you effing with me? I was like, no, we're going for 3. Do you want to see it here? Because we believe we have it. She was like, well, yeah, let me get those people out of the way.
Get the fuck out of the way.
So
No kidding. So now,
yeah, we had not made it before, but we knew on paper that we had it.
So I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume when the truck made just shy of 2,500 on paper, you had an idea that that tune-up would do 2,500. That is a crazy gap to go from 2,500 to 3,000 horsepower, but at the same time, I mean, it's really not that crazy. How did it feel? Like what was going through your head as you're having the truck on the dyno making that pull? Is it I hope this motherfucker stays together. This motherfucker better make the number. Like, what does that feel like?
No, it was just, I've done so many dyno pulls. It was kind of like, all right, well, the big kit's going to come on at this RPM. So whenever you see the tack swing up to that number, that's probably when you grit your teeth and have your hand right beside the fire suppression system and shove the dyno operator out of the way. Like, if it makes it past that RPM, you're good. So
let me ask you, what was the better feeling?
As soon as I realized it went past it and I heard and felt the kit come on, I was like, all right, we're good.
So what was the better feeling, Chris? Making the number or backing the truck in one piece off the dyno?
You're going to call me crazy. The better feeling was taking my wife to my sister's wedding last Sunday night and driving.
No, I believe that, man. I believe that.
Miles.
I believe that.
Is it a tough though when you show up at a wedding and you're like, no, but this truck makes 3,000 horsepower, and like the guys at the table are like, oh, that sounds like a lot. And you're like, you don't know how cool this is.
Actually, it was the complete opposite. There was probably more people hanging out around the truck than there were in the reception.
Damn, that probably
stole the show.
That probably hates you. Fuck that truck, she said.
There was some animosity. And, I didn't post anything about it. I'm not like a braggadocious guy or any of that crap. I just do what I do, and my work speaks for myself. But I just drove out there. I got her, dude. She was dressed up to the nines. I was like, damn, girl. And then I had my tux on and everything. So it was just nice to drive this freaking monster out there. And it was fun. It was a very nice drive home at 1 a.m. when the air was about 40 degrees because they light so damn quick. It was a blast.
So let's talk about one of the things we've seen a lot of Facebook chatter about, a lot of online chatter about, and that's the dyno itself and the 3,000 horsepower. So anybody who's been following this, they've heard some of the haters come out there and say, this dyno's loose. Everybody hits high numbers on this dyno. 3,000 horsepower, it's not real. This isn't a real horsepower record for diesel trucks. What's your response to that?
My response is a couple of responses. Number one, it's never the right dyno. It's never the right event. It's never the right location. It's never the right conditions to do it because such and such wasn't there and such didn't compete. But the fact is, there's a piece of paper that says 3,089 horsepower at an event where other people made good power too. Josh made 2,100 and something. I don't remember exactly, but I know it was 21. And Josh has done 21 back home on the power-driven dyno.
Yes. And at events. And at other events.
And at events.
Yep.
And his number was right. There are other guys that have made good power that their number was right. The one in particular that I was disappointed with, and it's not personal or anything, but was David Petrick. At that event, every year he does 21 to 2,200. Now he's been going consistently. And David is known to go to dynos and make 21 or 22 consistently. Well, unfortunately, he had a torque converter problem, and I believe the converter was slipping or it came unlocked or something. And he was only able to do like 17. So I didn't have all my backup numbers from the other competitors that I wanted.
Right.
But
I don't care. It doesn't matter. There is more in it, and I know that. Now, whether everyone believes me or not, I really don't give a shit. But you can hear it, and you can see how clean it runs, and we've added timing and duration since then, and we still have a whole nother 375 to turn on. And that whole pull, that 3,000 pull, was at 95 pounds of boost. So there's still more to go, but it doesn't matter. People can say whatever the heck they want to say. They weren't there. They didn't have a truck in the competition. They didn't do the 100-mile street cruise. It doesn't matter. I've already talked with James, and we're probably going to go see the Northwest Dyno Circuit in the very near future, and we're going to put down more, and we're going to validate everything. So I don't care. They can say whatever they want to say. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, I think there's a couple things there that I would like to kind of pick away at what you just said. Your truck made the 100-mile drive. right? So you just solidified
Yeah.
that you have a street truck, as you've been mentioning this entire interview. This isn't a purpose-built drag truck. This isn't a
Nope.
purpose-built dyno truck. This isn't a purpose-built sled pull truck. This is a purpose-built street truck.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in a sea of trucks that were making anywhere from 15 to 18 to 2,000 to 2,100 horsepower, which all these trucks have been validated to make those power numbers on other dynos, your truck
Yep.
first hit did 2450. Then you back that up
Yep.
with a 3,000 horsepower pull to have people talk shit.
And
Yep.
I'll jump in and play devil's advocate here for the haters. No problem. I
Yeah,
think
sure.
I think a lot of I haven't heard anybody say that like anything to take away from you winning the competition, right? Like it's very clear. Everybody got on the dyno on the same day, same dyno, same operators. Like the consistency of winning the competition, I have not seen questioned. Maybe there's morons out there, who knows. Where I've seen the pushback is on the dyno reading high, and I don't follow this dyno. I
Right.
don't know. I'm not big on like tracking down who's got the dyno record now. That's just not a big deal for me. But what I've
Sure.
read guys writing is that they feel this dyno always reads whatever it is, 10% higher. I've seen all sorts of stupid numbers, so who knows what it is.
Right. Right.
Do you think if you dropped your truck on James's on the Northwest Dyno circuit, you're confident it's going to back it up, it's going to make it? Like if we're at sea level, we're going to run it and we're going to hit the 3,000 number.
Every day.
I love that.
There's no doubt in my mind. Yep.
I mean, but you've also backed up
that's why
everything.
we didn't go. Go ahead.
You know, I was to say you've also backed up everything that you've claimed over the last few years. You went as an alternate in 2019. You campaigned yourself for 2020. You accepted an invitation to 2021 UCC, and you made a smart decision to back out. But you've come back with a better platform, and you've done teasers with videos online and stirred up a lot of ruckus because there is a lot of controversy with you having a 4-door long bed dually,
Yeah.
right? That's not the best, cool,
It doesn't make sense.
high horsepower, fast truck.
Oh no, that's
And-
perfect. That's right up my alley. Like,
And the
why
last
not? You're
person,
like, oh, Chris, you can't do that. Be like, well, why can't I do
right.
that?
Well,
Like,
I
you said
keep
I
thinking.
can't.
I remember the kickback that guys gave Randy Reyes a few years back with his red truck, and I know reading in the forums because we're all on the same forums, right? We're all in the same groups. There was a lot of, well, you'll never be Randy, you'll never be that red truck, you'll never be this, you'll never be that, and then here we are 2 years later. You have the first chassis dyno proven paper to show in a sea of trucks. Your truck did 3,000 horsepower.
Yeah, and I never was trying to be anybody.
No.
I'm me. I'm Chris Patterson. I do what I do. If you don't like it, don't follow me. Don't
Right.
read it. Don't like it. Don't comment. I don't care. Whatever. I'm not doing this for anybody's approval. This is just a dude with some tools and a truck from Texas. I don't know why everyone is so pissed off at anything I do, but it doesn't matter what I've done.
Because you
They-
just said
they
that.
all
That's
hate
why
it.
it matters. They hate it because you don't care that you're doing it just because you enjoy it. That's why.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm like, I got racetrack people DM me all this crap, and I'm like, dude, you got a 4,200 pound truck with a brake and a turbo 400. You're running a 102 Garrett with 3 big ass kits. Like, I can't touch that.
Call
Hey,
him out. Who was it? Who's
yeah.
been talking shit?
So it's like, hey, you want to drive to the track? I'll drive to the track and we'll run them and drive back. How about that?
Well, I think that's one of the
that
things
is-
I'm excited for. I mean, do you think if you drop this truck, if UCC was happening next weekend, do you think you could show up and win UCC with this truck, with this setup?
Yeah, if the points if the points and rule system stays how it is, yeah, I do.
I mean, you're talking to a guy that bought a bunch of fucking cones and put them in Valaire's parking lot to learn how to back up and do these things. Like, dude's dedicated. Paul, when was the last time you were at work at 3 a.m?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, let's...
I'm sure I had an airplane take off and I had to show up early to meet someone to go to the airport or something. No, come on.
I mean, the dedication in the drive speaks for itself, Chris. I can't speak enough good things about your character and the way you carry yourself when we ask these questions about the truck, and you let the truck do the talking, and hats off to you and the accomplishments, man. It's super cool to see that.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. In the end of the day, all you got is your word and your reputation.
Yeah.
That's all you got.
Well, I think you definitely got a good reputation here, Chris. We thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Obviously, my wife. This has been a major, major financial burden and time burden, and she has taken the brunt of everything. And I appreciate her for that every day. There will be no way I'm able to repay what is owed. And then, obviously, my shop, Unrivaled Diesel, again, a financial burden, a time burden, a priority burden. And then everyone knows I represent Flex Diesel extremely strong. So they have amazing fuel injectors, and I don't care what people say. The power is super, super good power, super clean burn, very reliable, no smoke, no haze, all that stuff. And then Sancher Shaft, Phil at Diesel Performance Converter, just everybody that's really trying to go ahead and make this whole thing work. I just appreciate everything everyone's done. My team, the ridiculous hours, other family burdens of my team members and their wives and kids. No one realizes how much it takes to make something like this happen. And there's no way I can ever repay them for what I owe them or, how thankful I am for them.
That's so cool.
And then, of course, the guys behind the keyboard, but nobody can show them any love, right? You know how those guys are. Bottom right corner.
Bottom right corner.
Yeah.
Chris, again, thank you so much.
All right. I'll holler at y'all later. Y'all be good.
You too.
Right, thank you so much.
Listeners, stick around. We got more Diesel Performance podcasts coming at you right after a word from our sponsors.
Replace the old leaking radiator in your truck with a direct fit replacement from the XDP Extra Cool radiator line. XDP's Extra Cool radiators are made using the same techniques used in the HD truck industry to give you durability, strength, and performance. Each Extra Cool radiator is built around a high-efficiency core with heavy-duty tubes. It's also internally reinforced for strength and features more fins per inch for maximum cooling. The end tanks on each radiator have been upgraded to a fiber-reinforced plastic construction for added strength and durability. To put it all together, a heavy-gauge steel crimp strip is used to join the tank and the core. This eliminates the separation that's common in OE radiators. To find out more about the XDP Extra Cool radiators, check out xdp.com or find a local dealer near you.
What is Worley Custom Fab's thermostat bypass valve, and why is it an important upgrade for your 2017 to 2019 L5P Duramax? 2017 to 2019 L5P Duramax trucks feature a unique thermostat assembly for the Allison transmission, which allows fluid to bypass the auxiliary cooler and use engine heat in the radiator coolant to reach ideal operating temps more quickly in cold weather. When the desired temperature is reached, the thermostat is supposed to open and allow fluid to flow forward into the auxiliary cooler, which helps maintain transmission fluid temperatures at a safe level. Now the issue. This thermostat is prone to get stuck closed, so when the fluid gets hot and reaches the point that it needs to be cooled via the auxiliary cooler, the fluid is instead bypassed by the closed thermostat and returned to the transmission uncooled. Hotter fluid breaks down quicker, which leads to poor fluid performance and potentially premature damage and shortened transmission life. If you tow with your truck or live in a warm climate, this bypass plug is a must. Whether your truck is a daily driver, work truck, tow rig, or competition race truck, this is an issue that plagues all 17 to 19 L5Ps. When running one of WC Fab's shop trucks at the drag strip, they noticed temperatures reaching the unsafe zone. After some investigation, they found the auxiliary cooler up front was cool to the touch. The hot fluid was not making its way to the cooler. Upon further research, they found that even factory stock trucks were experiencing the same issue. With this discovery, the thermostat bypass plug was born. The CAD-designed, CNC-machined, anodized billet aluminum bypass plug requires a simple 15-minute installation. WC Fab has been building high-performance transmissions for the L5P platform for many years now and immediately started including this made-in-the-USA piece with every transmission that they build. Tested in-house on both their shop trucks and customer trucks, the transmission cooler thermostat bypass plug for 2017 to 2019 L5P Duramax trucks can drop the fluid temperature from 15 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit by reducing fluid flow restriction to the transcooler. The Exergy Performance Fuel System Saver works. If you have a CP4 equipped fuel pump, which is commonly found on the 2011 to 2016 LML Duramax, and also the early 6.7 liter Ford Power Stroke engine, they're known for failure, period. Now, most of the time, if you put a lift pump on the truck, you'll prevent a lot of the potential failures. If you do regular maintenance, you can help prevent the potential failures. But at the end of the day, there's still a risk that no matter what you do, that CP4 could fail. And when they fail, they have a track record for sending all of the metal shavings downstream. So you end up needing a whole new fuel system, new lines, new injectors, new tubes, new everything. That could be very expensive. Even if you're under warranty or you find a bundle package for a great price, there's still a lot of labor that goes into that job. The Fuel System Saver increases the amount of protection post CP4. So it's not going to stop your CP4 from failing. What it's going to do is that, God forbid, the CP4 gives up and it starts to send metal debris through the truck. It's going to stop it before it hits the rest of your fuel system. And that's why they call it the Fuel System Saver. If you have a CP4 pump on your truck, you absolutely need to give DuramaxTuner.com a call today and get yourself a Fuel System Saver. All right, guys, now it's time to talk with our favorite super tech, Jeremy Garnett. Jeremy, how the hell are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Jeremy, we have talked a few times about this Hummer with the Duramax conversion.
Yes.
And I can't remember if we discussed it last week, but I know this week specifically, you have spent a lot of time in it. Can you give us a real brief recap on the project?
Yeah, I've been pretty deep in it this last week. So just to recap, it's an 05 Hummer, H1. So it's a civilian used Hummer, but military style.
Gotcha.
So everything's exactly what you'd see on a military, but civilian use.
That's right. So it's actually comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has soundproofing.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Yes. With a modern radio and AC. So
there you go. Yeah. Quite the upgrade from the military spec
right.
one, but still came with a 6.5 initially.
Yes. This one came in with a 6.5 turbo, which is a lot nicer than the 6.2 non-turbo.
Sure.
So to work on, and because of more clearance issues and stuff like that. But again, back to what we were talking about is that it is an 05 civilian use. Customer came in and he wanted to swap. So we had done one on our own before and it went really well. Lots of power, fun to drive, awesome in the dirt.
Yeah.
So he went full blown. We're doing a complete suspension, complete LBZ swap, king shocks, 3-inch body lift, all out.
Balls out, man. Yeah. This is he didn't miss anything.
No, I've posted a few pictures throughout the last couple months on my Instagram because I know we've been kind of a little quiet about it, but we still talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But now it's time to talk about it because that's what I've been doing. So,
what's this week been like? I think last time we talked, you had just lined up the body, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that was a couple. Yeah, I think what did we talk 2 weeks ago?
Something like that. Yeah.
So I just lined up the body. Got the body dropped on. Now this week has been getting basically all wired. So it comes with the new Duramax conversion, Duramax swap conversion harness.
Okay.
So for the engine and the trans, had to get all of that wired in. Got to get the new Duramax starter to work with the Hummer side. So I want to contain the factory key, the factory, stuff like that. So getting the Hummer to work with the factory relay, the starter and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
I want it to be easy to diagnose, look clean, and if there is a problem.
Yeah.
So doing that, then I have to, with the Hummer conversion with the Duramax swap, it's all GM parts. So we have to put in all four-wheel drive components for the four-wheel drive to work properly, the new transfer case.
Right.
So even though you don't use some of those components, they still need to be in there. So finding a spot to mount those inside the vehicle where, again, if they ever go bad, then they could be easily diagnosed.
Gotcha.
So that was, and then the shifter, that was another, that was this week too, getting the shifter put in it.
Now, traditionally, the shifter, the pattern gets flipped upside down on those.
Yes, because on a Hummer, it shifts forward. This, a Duramax, it shifts backwards.
Right.
So the guys, XHP, Extreme Hummer Parts, they built a really nice shifter design for it, which is out of a 2010 Camaro.
Okay.
So, but what they don't tell you is that it's 5 inches bigger than the factory hole. So again, you have to now grind that out, cut that out, get it to fit in there properly. They use a really nice universal shift cable.
Yeah.
They use on, anything that could be outdoors, but it's really nice, heavy duty quality. Now I got to attach that to the trans, make brackets for to mount properly and stuff like that. So
there's still quite a bit of fabrication. I know whenever we talk about swap processes, you hear about all the conversion kits out there, and you hear about like, oh, there's a harness kit, and oh, there's this kit, and there's that kit, and then you sit down to do it, and you're like, oh wait. The one thing we didn't talk about was how much actual custom fabrication you have to do to make something like this work.
So the way I'm looking at it is that like this kit and a lot of other kits that I've done, they're about 75% complete.
That's brutal.
So, I know, and I hate to say that. I'm not trying to stab at anybody. It's about 75% complete. Where for example, like the shifter, I put the shifter in, it comes with the cable, comes with this beautiful shifter, comes with the wiring harness for it, so you have the shift lock, which I have to make all work. But then I have to build and figure out my own bracket to mount it to the trans.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's like, okay, I get all the other components, but then I have to, okay, where's this last component where it mounts to the trans, where I have to build and make my own to do that.
Right.
So, and then other areas as well of the vehicle. So,
how many, if you had to just ballpark how many hours a project like this normally would take?
Well, with a group of people, it's about a 60 to 80 hour project. So about 2 weeks. I'm a single person. I'm about 160 hours. So about 160 hours into it, and I'm a single person.
Yeah.
So, I've had help, mounting like the coolant assembly and, the cooling stack.
Right.
And stuff like that on there because it's big, it's heavy. I've had help dropping that on, but when it comes down to building every power steering line, building every brake line, building, all that stuff, it was all me.
That's it.
Yeah, all the brakes, it was all me.
Do you want to do another one?
The second one was easier than the first.
So the third one will be a breeze.
Yeah, I actually do have one outside that it's already converted, but it's here for some other work. And,
yeah.
I'm going to dip into that once when I get this one up and on the road. So,
man, it is, honestly, it's a super cool build. And we've seen the completed version of this. The company Duramax Tuner has one. It is one of my all-time favorite vehicles to drive. One of the least practical,
yes.
Which makes me love it more. But yeah, these are, every time I see one of this style project come in where it's like, there's a lot of custom in it. I'm like, this is going to be a tough project.
Yeah. The Hummer's my favorite as well, but I'm biased too because I built it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love the Apache, but it's like the Hummer. It's like, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. That sense of pride with it. Yeah. I get that.
I did something that's 800 horse, so you can beat the living shit out of. So,
what's your pro tip for our listeners this week? If you got somebody at home working on a conversion kit, what do you think they need to know that they probably don't?
Time and questions. So, questions. And time. Just take your time, because sometimes taking that extra couple of minutes, for example, when I was putting the shifter in this thing, like making sure that it's wired properly to work with the factory, so it actually has a shift lock. So it took me a little bit more time than I was expecting, but just time. Yeah, just a little bit of time goes a long way.
I love that.
Stepping back.
Step back, think it through, do it once.
Yep.
It's good stuff. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate you joining us today.
No problem. Have a great day.
Listeners, stick around. We got a little bit more Diesel Performance Podcast coming at you after this. All right, guys, it's time for our remote support expert to join us. Sean Lynn, how the hell are you?
Great. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing good, man. Sean, your specialty here is really helping people kind of diagnose the problems they're having with their trucks without actually having to go out there and turn wrenches and work on their truck. So a lot of coaching people through how to fix the issue or how to diagnose the issue. What vehicle are we talking about today?
We're talking about an LB7 Duramax, so an early one.
Ooh, bringing me back to my nostalgia. I love it. Okay, what's the problem? What were the symptoms reported?
So this guy installed a larger turbocharger and a new intake on his truck, and he went with his buddies to some burnout competition and got really embarrassed because his truck would not do a burnout.
You know, I chuckle about this, but I've been there, man, and it is brutal when you think you have spent your money to do things, and then you go out to go prove that it was worth it, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel worth it anymore. And that's a real kick in the nuts, man. I don't care who you are. Okay, how'd you troubleshoot this truck? What were the steps you took to diagnose the problem?
So basically, I looked at the ordering information from his original order to make sure that we had all the mods the same on the current tune that he had, and like I said, he changed his intake, he changed his turbo, so intake's a big one there on an LB7. If it's a larger diameter, it's not going to fuel right down low. So basically what we did was I went over it with Brandon, our tuning guy here, went over the mods, updated the tune, changed the little things, and now his truck does burnouts. And his intake really throws off the power down low because it thinks less air is going through because the pipe diameter is larger.
Is it like a custom like sheet metal intake? It's somebody's larger fabbed intake? Yeah.
Because like an S&B one wouldn't require a tune update, but a large diameter one always does.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so mass airflow sensor issue. And you can spot those pretty easily over the phone just by asking a couple of basic questions, right?
Yeah. When did your truck stop driving normally in your best guess? Like, did you install something on the truck? What changed?
Yeah. Okay. What changed? I like that. And then if you want to know if it's a MAF issue, okay, are you underpowered? If it's yes, okay, is there smoke? If you have the scaling wrong for your mass airflow sensor, you're probably not going to have any smoke. And another really easy one is like, does all the power come on at once? So it's a dog, and then you hit whatever the RPM is, like 2,200 RPM, just say, and all of a sudden it runs like a raped ape. Boom, that's a MAF issue.
Absolutely.
Real easy to spot over the phone, right? Where you're just like, oh man, these are such a common warning sign that this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and then the other end of that spectrum would be if the truck is really smoky and it takes a while to take off, like probably a boost leak.
Yeah.
Very common.
Super common.
People
right?
don't think they exist, but they do.
Well, and I know we always talk here about like it's a diesel, man. It's either fuel or air. Your issue 99% of the time is either fuel or air related when we're talking about these things. So like being able to spot that and dial into that quickly really helps people out.
Yeah, and we do what we can here to get him running right again.
I love it, man. Okay, so got this guy a tune update. He's out doing burnouts. He's happy. You're happy. And we're moving on to the next one.
Yes, he is doing burnouts now, and he's very happy.
Well, that's what we like to hear, guys. Use your truck recklessly. You did not hear that here. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, stick around. We got more Diesel Performance Podcasts coming at you in just a minute.
All right, guys, and here we are with industry news. I have Anthony Bernini with me. Anthony, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm excited. I'm excited to learn something today. So, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
I would say right now. We think about the industry and we think about summer months with racing and sled pulling and all the contests, and then kind of that fall time. We kind of get into some of the trade shows and we get into some of that stuff. So, what do you got for us for the listeners today?
Yeah, a couple things like you mentioned. I mean, where we're at, it's kind of slowed down. It's that time of year. It's getting cold.
Yeah, Midwest, right?
Yeah, exactly. First thing, I mean, I've been keeping an eye out on Instagram, Facebook, watching what's getting posted.
Yeah.
Truck Wars out in North Carolina.
That was a pretty big event.
That was pretty good.
That was a really good event.
Yeah, I saw videos, pictures. I mean, it's one of those, we talked about the truck jam also. Like, you see these trucks racing, like, no matter how much we see it, I still get excited.
Well, there's always another element or level of competition.
Yeah.
And, I was lucky enough to, we have a couple customers that have been, with the brand for a long time. Mark Downing, a personal buddy of mine, and Daniel McEwen, two Cummins owners. It's crazy to see that they went to that event, right? And they like to, throw crap at one another and talk smack. So, they were like, oh, I'm going to show you up and we're going to go. And two very different trucks, but very similar platforms.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. They both have similar platforms. You mentioned that they both have Cummins. Downing's got a red single cab.
Yep.
Definitely right around that 1,000 horse mark, if not over.
The truck was at our shop a few years ago. It made 990 on a really hot day. He's done some cool things with the truck since. He's back-halfed it, four-linked it. It's, like you said, a two-wheel drive regular cab truck. It's a purpose-built truck.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's still a stock motor. It's just all the bolt-ons with a couple 100,000 miles. And then, Daniel McEwen, he bought a truck used from someone really well-known in the industry out on the East Coast. It's got a D&J motor, big set of compounds, right? Four-wheel drive crew cab.
Nasty.
So, when you look at it on paper, I would have assumed that Mark would have taken Daniel out.
You'd think, yeah.
But not the case, right?
No, he edged him out, by fractions of seconds. That's just how it goes. Both trucks are nasty to look at. Yeah. You pop the hood, you see the setup. You look at Downing, like you're talking about, he's got the race truck. That is a purpose-built race truck. Daniel, I'm pretty sure you could put the wife and kids in there and just go drive around and cruise.
He does.
Downing got smoked. So, no, it's cool to see, friends of the company. Would you say
Downing has less of a driver mod?
I don't know.
I think you should say it right here so we can listen to it.
Downing, you can't drive for shit. I'll say it right now. He better listen to this episode. I'm going to send it to him.
Now, that's East Coast. At the same, not the same time. That was last weekend. Mm-hmm. Now this week, West Coast, there's SEMA.
Oh yeah, that is one of the, if not the biggest event, I should say. Yeah. I would say show, but there's not a lot of racing, or there's not racing. It's just you have booths. GM, Ford, Dodge, everyone under the sun has a booth they represent. Outside, you've got SEMA's built purpose trucks.
It's the automotive mecca when it comes to trade shows.
Yeah,
in the aftermarket, and it gives these these OEM companies a platform to release. Chevy just released their 632 cubic inch 1,000 horsepower big block. Right, just crazy stuff, especially in a world where everything is there's always conversation about electric, right, and EV and stuff like that, which.
I like it,
but
Ford had their own stuff, like the EV Mustang, for example.
Yeah.
There's people are already stancing those things.
Yeah,
I saw a couple of them on bags, and I was like, didn't these things just come out just to see that stuff?
Now, we always get calls throughout the year. Guys call in, they're like, "Oh, I'm working on my SEMA build," right? And it's like, okay, I'm not discrediting that. If that's your hobby and that's what you're into, cool. Not my cup of tea by any means, but we've played with a couple SEMA builds with customers and helped lend a helping hand in there. But a lot of diesel companies go to this type of trade show to release new products.
Yeah, the big one also. 5.9s we've been doing for how many years now?
Yeah, 5.9 Cummins. It's
BD
one of the more popular platforms.
BD just launched their new 5.9 intake manifold.
Super slick.
Yeah.
I saw some photos of that. Really good looking.
It's pretty nasty.
And
a couple other things. It's one of those, you've got trucks that are a mile high. I give them credit, though. Like you're saying, it's not a cup of tea, but the powder coating in everything that goes into it,
man,
it's intense.
I'll tell you what, there are guys that have put more money into their one build in just powder coating than I have in vehicles. That's no lie.
Yeah.
So, that's what that event is. Mm-hmm. It's eye candy times 100,000, that's what that is to bring people in.
It's cool. A couple other things I noticed aside from the events was some rumors, I should say.
Okay.
Every year, we're getting calls now. I had a call about a 23 Duramax the other day.
No.
Just placed my order. What are we looking at for tuning?
Oh, God. We just started getting 2022 calls recently, and I'm cringing at that, because there was a delay for the 2022s to be released just because of chip shortages and everything else. So 23 orders are starting to take place.
Yeah. There's been a couple. The big thing is the spy shots. Every time you see, I know when the C8 Vet was coming out, that was a big thing. With how they have the cars wrapped so you can't see the body lines and things like that. From what I could tell.
You saw that with the C8 Z06.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of automotive conversation and whatnot with the release of that. So you see a lot of that.
There's a lot of that. A couple redesigns on the Duramax that I saw that kind of stuck out was I think the headlights are changing up a little bit. I know people hated the front ends when they first came out. I feel like it's grown on a lot of people.
They've grown on a lot of people, for sure.
Especially good wheels and tires. I mean, that can definitely set the stance.
Good wheels, tires, and tints go a very long way in any vehicle.
Hey, that's a SEMA build right there.
You can make a Volkswagen Beetle look good, right? Like, all joking aside.
Rumors at the new Duramax is going to be 500 horse from the factory.
Well, what I think is unique about that is, as guys are starting to call into tuning companies and shops to talk about what's supported, when you get into these, body changes and this different era truck, when you talk about more power, stuff like that, that comes with a new ECM.
Yeah.
So, for the listeners out there, granted, this isn't, concrete information, but general rule of thumb is that whatever the 2023 is going to be different than what we had experienced in the 20 to 22 trucks or in the 17 to 19 trucks. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see like what those, what the unraveling of that is as far as power, interior, and support.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Yeah. I mean, when the L5Ps first came out, I mean, it took us a couple years before we worked with HPT and got support. Who knows if that happens, ECM change.
Well, you also, if you follow the automotive side of, the gasoline side of things, and you look at like a C8 Corvette, that ECM is non-communicable, mm-hmm. right? You cannot flash. So what they have is ECM piggybacks, and they have a separate controller controlling part of the engine management after the factory ECM has met its true potential. So you have two brain boxes controlling the motor and controlling different attributes in the engines. That's multiple sensors and everything else that goes along with that. That might just be what the new era of diesel performance may be, depending on the complexity of the ECM.
Yeah. I mean, like you're saying, you have all that information. One, the engineering's nuts.
Oh, it's insane.
For us to get one of those new trucks and be like, hey, let's tune this.
Let's reverse engineer this.
Yeah, it's like,
let's reverse this crazy monstrosity of, technically advanced, engineering that's gone into this for years.
Yeah, it's nuts. And you got guys, hey, when is this coming out?
Right.
Hey, man, we don't even have the truck.
A year from now, man, you told me 6 months, man. I said I didn't know what I hope. For sure. Right. And we've seen some interior spy shots and stuff like that, especially in the Silverado area. There's been a lot of kickback on the 2020 to 2020, 2021, 2022 trucks. It's a little awkward. I'm not going to lie. Some of the display stuff. So seeing some of the spy shots of what the 2023 HDs are going to look like, I think puts a breath of fresh air in those platforms. I think they're really trying to be competitive with some of the Ram and Ford stuff.
I was going to say the Ford is a good offset. For example, like when I saw the spy shots of the gauge display, it's converting to electric.
Okay.
So instead of having needles and stuff, like they've always been, the 3.0 Explorer that Tim has, it's reminiscent of that in the sense of you've got a display on one side, one on the other, and you can navigate what everything looks like. Not to mention you've got a bigger radio, heads-up display, if you will. So, I mean, that if everything pulls through, I think it'll be a pretty good change that a lot of people, because again, a lot of people don't like the 20 to 22 stuff, and kind of reviving that I think will be real nice.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the interior. As far as exterior, I noticed a little bit of headlight changes. They've got the trucks all wrapped up. I mean, for the most part, body lines and whatnot are the same.
Yeah.
I can't see a lot changing. Maybe some grille changes, color matching for the factory.
I think once you see some of the camo wrapping and stuff like that kind of be removed from the truck, then you could have two trucks that are very similar. I always think about like the Ford Power Stroke, and you think of like the 6-liter era to 6.4 era to the early 6.7 era. Bodyline wise, they're all very similar, but when there's no camo or anything covering the body, they're all very. You could decipher which platform is what.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think that as time progresses, me and Paul have been talking about getting you on board as well, of as more information is released. That's something that I want to cover more on as, we start preparing for what those new models are.
Exactly.
2023 is going to be crazy in my opinion, because we've ran into this, COVID, chip shortage, vehicle shortage, this and that. Don't be surprised if all the vehicle manufacturers are taking that time to explore what that new platform is going to be. And usually that's going to come with pretty sticky price tags as well.
I mean, that's where everything got pushed back. Call it a year, give or take, you should say. I mean, Ford's talking about redesign. There's rumors on that. Dodge, a little bit. I mean, GM as well. I mean, I've seen a lot more pictures of the GM stuff than the other two. But, I mean, who knows? Like trucks are as much as a house nowadays.
no,
So I mean, who knows how long that's
Trucks
sticking around.
literally cost as much as my house. Paul, we were just talking about it. Like I'm pretty sure I could buy a Ford Platinum and pay more than what I paid for my house.
Jeez,
so.
man. No, that's something else.
No, I appreciate that. More to come too, I think. Anthony, thank you for taking the time and breaking everything down. And until next week, right?
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
All right, guys.
Chris, what a great show today.
Man, super cool. I really had a great time. Thank you again to Chris Patterson for taking some time to, you could tell he's passionate about his accomplishments and
Right.
what he does. Like that takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time. Like I don't know which one it takes more of. It just takes a lot of all of that, and then a team to support that.
100%.
But the way he was able to navigate and articulate the process to get us to this point, like I have confidence in him, and I'm super excited to see what kind of package he brings to future contests going into 2022.
100% correct. Yeah, guys, if you want to follow along, jump on over to the Fans of Diesel Performance Podcast Facebook page and do yourself a favor right now. Not only, I'm sure you guys have all already subscribed to our show,
Right.
Diesel Performance Podcast, please rate and review and share it with a friend. We'd really appreciate that. For today, this has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Thanks for listening.
What are we doing?